Ever done something for money and instantly regretted it? I did. I ruined my best friend's life for $500. I told myself it was just a job, just a test. But it wasn't. For years, I watched her struggle, knowing I caused it. Today, I show up, shaking, confessing, trying to make it right. Money can fix bills, but it can't fix trust. And some mistakes follow you forever. I always thought the worst betrayal a parent could commit was abandoning their child. Turns out, it's smiling to your face while robbing you blind. When I left for my sophomore year of college, my beat-up but dependable 2011 Honda Civic stayed parked in our driveway. I'd bought it myself, 2 summers of double shifts at the diner, $5,200 cash, no loans, no help. That car wasn't just metal and tires, it was freedom, my escape route. 2 months into the semester, I came home for a surprise weekend visit. I pulled into our street, ready to see my Civic sitting where I'd left it, but the driveway was empty. At first, I thought maybe my dad had moved it. When I asked where it was, my mom gave me that tight smile she uses when she's hiding something. "Oh, honey," she said, "we had to sell it. Emergency bills." I froze. Sell it? Without telling me? It's my car. Dad piped up from the couch without looking away from the TV. "We needed the money more than you needed a car. We're family. You should understand." Understand? They'd sold my property, my lifeline, without even asking. And then they had the nerve to tell me it was for family. I wanted to scream. They claimed they got $4,000 for it, but something about the way my mom's eyes darted told me that number was a lie. That night, lying in my old bed, I promised myself one thing: I wasn't going to let this slide. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to find out exactly what happened to my car and make them regret thinking they could steal from me and get away with it. The clock was ticking, and so was my patience. I didn't sleep that night. I kept pacing in my tiny apartment, the smell of stale coffee and rain-soaked clothes clinging to me. My phone sat on the counter, buzzing every few minutes with texts from Mom. Some were guilt trips. "You don't understand what family does for each other." Others were pure insults. "You've become selfish ever since you moved out." By morning, I decided I had to confront her. I drove straight to her house, heart pounding. I hadn't been there in months, not since our last blow-up. When I pulled up, I saw my old parking spot, empty, a jagged wound in the driveway where my car used to be. The front door was unlocked. I walked in, and the smell of fresh pancakes hit me. My mom was at the stove like nothing had happened, humming along to some old country song. "Morning," she said, barely glancing at me. "Coffee's on the counter." I didn't move. "Where's my car, Mom?" She flipped a pancake and smirked. "Gone. You don't need it. I sold it to help your brother. He's starting his own landscaping business, and he needed a truck." I could feel my nails digging into my palms. "You didn't even tell me. That car was mine. Paid off. Registered in my name." Her voice went sharp, like a whip. "We're family. We share. You've been acting like you're separate from us, like you owe us nothing. Well, guess what? We made sacrifices for you your whole life." "Sacrifices?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean like taking my savings for a sea of emergency bills that were actually casino trips? Or promising to pay me back and never doing it?" She slammed the spatula down. "Don't start with your little victim speech. Your brother's actually doing something with his life. You should be proud you're helping." The sound of footsteps came from the hallway. My brother emerged, wearing a brand new leather jacket, keys to the truck dangling in his hand. "Hey," he said, all casual. "Thanks for the ride, man." That was it. I saw red. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. "You know you're stealing from me, right?" He shrugged. "Mom said you didn't mind." The room went silent, except for the ticking clock. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. One wrong word and everything between us would snap forever. My hand itched to grab my phone and call the police, but my mind was already working on something bigger. Because in that moment I realized this wasn't about a car. This was about years of them treating me like I didn't matter, and I was done. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the empty driveway. The silence in my room felt heavy, like the walls were closing in. I knew there was more to the story. They weren't telling me the truth. The next morning, I acted calm. Over breakfast, my dad was reading the paper like nothing happened. My mom was scrolling on her phone, laughing at some video. I sat down, forcing my voice to sound steady. "So, when exactly did you sell my car?" I asked. They froze. My mom looked up first, her expression sharp. "Why does it matter? You weren't using it enough, and it was taking up space. Plus, we needed the money more than you did." I stared at them. "You needed the money for what? Groceries? Bills? Because that's my property we're talking about." My dad's voice was low, almost defensive. "It went to something important. Don't push it." That was my confirmation. They were hiding something, and if they weren't going to tell me, I'd find out myself. The moment they left for errands, I went into my mom's room. I never snooped before, but this wasn't snooping. This was an investigation. I opened her desk drawer, rifling past receipts and old checks until I found a freshly printed bank statement. My eyes scanned down the page. There it was, a $14,200 deposit from the exact day my car disappeared, and then, just 2 days later, a $12,000 withdrawal to a travel agency. My hands trembled. I already knew where that money went. I opened my laptop and searched the travel agency name. The first thing that popped up was a glowing review from my brother's fiancée. She posted a smiling photo of the two of them, captioned, "Can't wait for our honeymoon in the Maldives. Huge thanks to my amazing in-laws." I almost laughed. The irony was suffocating. Not only had they stolen my car, they'd turned my sacrifice into some luxury getaway for him. My brother, who already had a brand new car, a 6-figure salary, and a wedding fund. My phone buzzed. A message from him. "Hey, heard you're upset. It's just a car, man. You'll get over it." I wanted to throw the phone across the room. My chest burned, not just with anger but betrayal so deep I could barely breathe. They had planned this. They'd decided my needs were less important than his wants, and they hadn't even bothered to apologize. But that was their mistake. Because if they thought I'd just get over it, they had no idea who they were dealing with. I was going to make sure everyone knew the truth. The days after that dinner were a blur of bitter silence. My parents didn't even even bother to check in on me. My sister Natalie kept posting smug Instagram stories of her countdown to the dream wedding, the same wedding funded by my future. Every post felt like a taunt. I started skipping meals to stretch my money. My apartment rent was due in 2 weeks, and I was still short by $700. My savings were gone, replaced with a deep pit in my chest. I tried not to think about the inheritance. My grandfather's legacy being turned into centerpieces, lobster dinners, and champagne fountains. Then one night, around midnight, I got a knock on my door. It was Natalie. She looked irritated. "Mom said you still haven't RSVP'd to the wedding," she said, arms crossed like she was talking to a disobedient child. I stared at her in disbelief. "You want me to attend the wedding you stole from me?" Her face twisted into a mocking grin. "Technically, Mom and Dad decided. And it's not like you were using that money. You've always been average. I deserve this more." Those words didn't just sting. They lit something inside me. She had no remorse, no shame. She turned to leave, tossing over her shoulder, "Oh, and don't bother wearing that old suit. We have a dress code." The next morning, I called my boss to ask for extra shifts. I figured if I couldn't get my money back yet, I could at least survive long enough to fight. But as I was leaving for work, I noticed an envelope taped to my door. Inside was a final notice. My landlord was demanding full payment by the end of the week, or I'd be evicted. That's when my pulse started pounding. I knew exactly who could help me, and exactly who would be furious about it. I reached for my phone and scrolled to the contact I'd been avoiding for years. Grandpa James's attorney. My hands shook as I hit dial. I knew this call could blow my family apart, but I also knew something bigger. They had already destroyed us the moment they decided my future was disposable. When the attorney answered, I didn't waste time. "I think my parents committed fraud with my inheritance," I said, "and I have proof." Silence. Then the calm, deliberate voice replied, "Come to my office tomorrow. Bring everything you have." I hung up, my heart racing. The war had officially begun. I stood in my apartment that night, the silence almost screaming at me. My phone screen lit up every few minutes with new messages, half from friends who'd heard about the purse incident through my mother's Facebook brag post, and half from my mother herself, alternating between guilt trips and threats. One message in particular froze me. "You owe me for everything I've ever done for you. Don't forget who fed you when you couldn't even feed yourself." That was the moment the pit in my stomach turned into something sharper. Resolve. She had taken the car, my independence, and months of my hard work, and now she was trying to rewrite the narrative so I'd feel like the villain. I decided to go through the one thing I knew she hadn't thought about: the dealership's security cameras. I'd bought that car through a friend who worked at the lot. If my mother sold it, there had to be a paper trail. When I arrived at the dealership the next morning, my friend Darren looked at me like I'd just stepped into a war zone. "Man, your mom came in here like she owned the place. Said you gave her full permission." He tapped his keyboard, pulling up transaction records. My signature line on the sale contract was a shaky, messy scrawl. Nothing like mine. It wasn't just a forgery. It was sloppy. And right there on the timestamp, I saw it. She'd sold the car less than an hour after dropping me off for my shift that day. "That's theft, dude," Darren said, lowering his voice. "You can report her." The idea sat in my chest like a heavy stone. Report my own mother, the woman who raised me, the woman who in the same breath had also destroyed my trust and treated my hard-earned property like her personal ATM? I didn't answer him. I left with a printed copy of the sale records, my fake signature glaring at me in black ink. That night, I couldn't sleep. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a screenshot from a mutual acquaintance. My mother was online, bragging about how her lazy son finally did something useful with his junk car. I clenched my jaw so tight it hurt. She wasn't just stealing from me, she was humiliating me publicly, making me look like a useless, careless fool who couldn't manage his own life. Something inside me shifted. I realized I'd been playing defense this whole time, reacting to every blow she dealt. But if I was going to end this, I needed to go on offense. And that meant doing something I'd sworn I never would: calling in help from people who knew exactly how to deal with betrayal, even when it came from blood. The next morning, I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't touched in years. When the voice on the other end answered, deep and steady, I said one sentence: "I think it's time I told you what Mom's been doing." The pause was long, heavy, and then came the reply: "I'll be there tonight, and we're not letting her get away with this." That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just going to be a confrontation, this was going to be a reckoning. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying every look, every whisper from the dinner, like my family's betrayal had carved itself into my brain. At 3:14 a.m., I heard something, not the normal creaks of the house. No, this was a soft thud followed by the faint crinkle of paper sliding under my apartment door. My stomach twisted. I hesitated, then walked barefoot across the cold hardwood, my shadow stretching long in the hallway light. On the floor lay a single white envelope, no return address. Inside was a short letter, handwritten in messy block letters. "You think you know the truth? You don't. Meet me at Miller's Diner, booth 7, tomorrow at 8 a.m. Come alone." No signature. For a second, I thought it had to be a prank, maybe even some cruel relative trying to mess with me again. But then I noticed the last line, scrawled hastily at the bottom: "Bring the blue folder from your closet." My blood ran cold. The blue folder. I hadn't looked at it in years. It was stuffed with old bank statements, contracts, and documents I thought didn't matter anymore. I barely slept. At 7:45 a.m., I walked into Miller's Diner, heart hammering, scanning the booths. The smell of frying bacon and burnt coffee clung to the air. Booth 7 was in the corner, shadowed, away from the windows. A man sat there, late 50s, weathered face, wearing a faded baseball cap. He motioned me over without a smile. "Name's Carl," he said. "I knew your dad, and I know exactly what your family's been hiding from you." Before I could react, he pulled a thin file from his bag and slid it across the table. Inside were photocopies of checks, contracts, and my grandfather's will, but it was different from the one I'd seen before. This one had my name on it, and a very large number written next to it. Carl leaned in, voice low. They took what was yours, and I can prove it. But if you go after them, it's gonna get ugly. I stared at the papers, my hands trembling. Every instinct screamed that this was dangerous. But for the first time, I felt a surge of control. I'm ready for ugly, I said. Carl smirked. Good, because you have no idea how deep this goes? I didn't even have time to process the last shock before my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Stop digging, or you'll regret it, the message read. No name, no emoji, just cold, flat text that made my stomach twist. The street outside my apartment was dead quiet, yet I couldn't shake the feeling someone was out there watching. I locked every window, every door, and drew the blinds. Then came the knock. 3 short raps. Too soft to be a neighbor, too deliberate to be random. I froze, every muscle in my body tense. Who's there? I called, my voice sharper than I intended. Silence. I reached for the baseball bat I kept behind the door, but before I could take a step, the knock came again, slower this time, almost mocking. I pulled out my phone, hovering over the keypad to dial 911, but then a slip of paper slid under my door. My heart thudded in my ears as I bent down to pick it up. The handwriting was jagged, like it had been scrawled in a hurry. It's not just your family. You have no idea how deep this goes. A loud crash erupted from the alley outside, shattering my focus. I rushed to the window and peeked through the blinds just in time to see a shadow dart around the corner. Whoever it was moved fast, too fast to be some random bystander. I grabbed my jacket and phone, slipped on my sneakers, and bolted out the door. The night air hit me hard, and every sound, a stray cat's hiss, the rustle of leaves, made my adrenaline spike. I followed the faint sound of footsteps until they disappeared into the low hum of the city. Then I noticed something. On the brick wall near the alley's end, spray-painted in bold black letters, was a single word, run, and for the first time in my life, I didn't know if I should. The word run burned in my mind as I backed away from the alley wall, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. Every instinct screamed danger. Every shadow seemed alive. I glanced at my phone. No new messages, no missed calls, only the dull glow of the screen. Whoever had left that note didn't want to be traced. I turned the corner and froze. There, on the sidewalk, was my car. The driver's side window smashed. My bag was gone, my wallet, my ID, everything. Panic clawed at me, but I forced myself to think whoever was behind this had studied me, knew my routine, my schedule, and now they wanted me unprepared, vulnerable. I darted across the street, ignoring the curious stares of late-night pedestrians. The city lights offered little comfort. The shadows between the buildings felt like teeth waiting to bite. I ducked into a 24-hour diner, the fluorescent lights washing over me, making me feel exposed and strangely safe at the same time. I slid into a booth, pulling my knees up to my chest, trying to catch my breath. The waitress, a weary woman with a name tag reading, Gloria, gave me a polite nod. Coffee? She asked. I nodded, and she poured without pressing. As I sipped, I thought back. Every warning I'd ignored, every gut feeling I'd brushed aside, suddenly hit me like a freight train. The mysterious messages, the sudden knocks, the smashed window, all of it was connected to something much bigger than I realized. I reached for my phone again, determined to call someone, anyone, but the battery was dead. No charger, no power, just the eerie hum of the diner's fridge and the faint buzz of a neon sign outside. Then I saw her. A woman at the counter, hood up, eyes scanning the room, moving deliberately closer. My stomach dropped. I didn't recognize her, yet something in the way she carried herself screamed familiarity, menace. She stopped at the counter, turned her head slightly, and for just a second, our eyes met. Ice ran through my veins. I knew then she was waiting for me, watching me, and she wasn't alone. Before I could move, my phone vibrated violently in my pocket. A single text appeared. You can't hide. Not from me. Not tonight. The diner's bell jingled. I wasn't imagining it. Shadows were shifting outside, moving closer. I grabbed my coat, shoved a few bills on the counter, and ran out into the alley, my sneakers slapping the pavement, adrenaline screaming through every vein. Somewhere behind me, the faintest laugh echoed. Calm, controlled, and I knew whatever this was, it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. My lungs burned, legs screaming in protest, but I refused to stop. The alleyways of the city had become a maze, but I had memorized every shortcut, every hidden corner. Tonight, I refused to be prey. Finally, I burst into the empty parking lot behind an old warehouse. Shadows shifted, and I realized I wasn't alone. The woman from the diner stepped forward, hood down this time. Her face was familiar, terrifyingly familiar. You shouldn't have run, she said, voice calm, almost mocking. You know too much now. I froze, my mind raced, and then I saw him. A man in the corner, half hidden, holding a tablet showing every moment of my past week, my routines, my phone, my apartment. It clicked. This wasn't random. This was planned. Every threatening message, every smashed window, every shadow trailing me, all orchestrated, and now it had led me here. I clenched my fists. Fear threatened to paralyze me, but anger surged stronger. I had survived too much to be intimidated now. Why? I demanded, voice shaking but steady. Why are you doing this? The woman smirked. Because you finally think you can control your life, but you've always been predictable. Predictable. That word lit a fire inside me. I realized my only chance was to act, not run. I scanned the lot, spotting a loose chain hanging from a nearby gate. I grabbed it, holding it like a weapon, heart hammering. The man lunged. I swung the chain. It connected with the tablet, sending it crashing to the ground. Sparks flew from the screen. The sound was deafening, and the sudden distraction gave me a moment to run. I sprinted, knowing the exit was just ahead. I didn't stop until the city lights opened up, until the hum of traffic replaced the eerie silence of the warehouse. I collapsed, breathless, trembling, but alive. Hours later, I called the police. Evidence from the destroyed tablet led them to uncover a small but dangerous surveillance ring, obsessed with controlling lives lives for money and thrill. Both the woman and man were arrested. Sitting on my couch that night, wrapped in a blanket, I finally let myself exhale. I had faced fear, betrayal, and near death, and I had survived. I opened my laptop, drafted a post to my followers, and wrote the words I needed to hear myself. I refused to be a victim. I reclaimed my life, and no one will take my peace from me again. And in that moment, the city outside didn't feel threatening anymore. It felt like freedom. I had been chased, threatened, and tested, but the fire inside me had burned brighter. I was no longer afraid. I was empowered. I was unstoppable.